to a special edition of Stars Volta. This is QB Club, and we are going to analyze some of the top quarterbacks going into the 2023 season for college football. And we're going to do that with a panel of former college quarterbacks and one who is currently a professional quarterback. Our panel is Kevin Anderson, who played at Marshall and Fordham and just recently won the XFL Championship with the Arlington Renegades. We also have Jeff Supernah, who played at Loras College as a quarterback there and also high school coaching up in the Madison area. And then the final panelist is Warren Arnold, who was my high school quarterback and then also played football at Valparaiso University, where he played against Jim Harbaugh, who was coaching University of San Diego. And Warren was also had a quarterback coach named Jeff Christensen. You might have heard of him or seen him in the latest documentary of quarterback. He's Patrick Mahomes' quarterback coach and also Jimmy G. But Warren's not that great. He's just okay. Just kidding. But we'll get into it. We're gonna break down some quarterbacks. Each quarterback, former quarterback here, had two quarterbacks that are going into 2023 season that they analyze their tape, and they're going to go over accuracy. We're going to look at arm strength, decision making, pocket presence, and athleticism. So the first quarterback that we'll go with is Drake Maye. He had an outstanding freshman season, but the end of his season was kind of on the downturn. They went 9-5, but he lost his last 4 games, including a thumping by Clemson in the ACC Championship. And then they also lost to Oregon in the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl, 28-27. A lot of the success of North Carolina, if it's going to happen this year, is going to come from Drake Maye. They lost 2 of their starting receivers to the NFL, but they do have a good running back coming back. And Maye has some good legs himself. Warren, tell us what you think is going to happen in 2023 from Drake Maye.
Yeah, I mean, Drake Maye is definitely an NFL type talent. He's a big guy, 6'4", 230 pounds. So he's got a lot of what it takes to really make it at the next level. You did mention that he lost 2 guys, Josh Downs and Antoine Green, to the NFL. Downs going to the 3rd round to the Colts, and Antoine Green going to the Lions. So that's going to be tough for him because those 2 guys actually accounted for over 40% of his passing yards last season. So between the 2 of them, they had close to 150 catches, and so that's a tough thing to make up for with him going into this season. They do have 2 transfers that are coming in. A guy, Nate McCollum, that's coming from Georgia Tech, who had 60 catches for over 650 yards last year with Georgia Tech. So he's going to be a nice addition for them. So I would expect to see them hooking up quite a bit. The other guy he had come in was Tez Walker, who's from Kent State. So he had 58 catches for 921 yards last year, was a first-team All-MAC selection. So he's going to be, he's a speedy receiver, so he would be somebody else that Drake Maye would look to use as a deep threat on this team. Looking at Drake Maye himself in terms of his capabilities as a player, looking at his accuracy, he completed over 66% of his passes last year. So his accuracy, I would rate it at an 8.7. There are times where on deep throws, he does come up a little bit short on guys. It's not for lack of arm strength. He's got plenty of arm strength, but just being able to float the ball in there in certain situations, he seems to miss throw every once in a while. But overall, very, very accurate thrower. And I mentioned arm strength. He's got a really big arm, can make all the throws. Will make throws off his back foot at times, which is obviously not ideal, but he's got the arm strength to be able to make up for it.
Maye with a shot up the seam and strike, just what they needed. Antoine Green to the house.
So for that reason, I'd rate his arm strength at a 9.3. In terms of decision making, for the most part, he was pretty solid throughout the year, but where he would get into trouble is at times he would struggle to make the decision quick enough when the pocket's collapsing, and because of that, he was getting sacked quite a bit. He was sacked 40 times on the year. And so my ranking for him on decision-making is an 8.4. And continuing on with that 40 sacks on the season, in terms of pocket presence, you can tell that there are times when he doesn't feel comfortable because there's pressure coming in. He doesn't recognize that a blitz is coming and quickly check down to some of his running backs out of the backfield or hot receivers, and he gets kind of swallowed up by the pocket when he feels that pressure. So his pocket presence, I rated him at a 7.4. He does step up well when there is a pocket for him, and he does have enough athleticism to be able to get outside the pocket at times and extend plays. But in terms of being in the pocket itself, he sometimes does struggle with pressure when defenses bring a blitz. And then going into his athleticism overall, he's, for a big guy, a 6'4" quarterback, he runs a fast 40 time, running in the high 4.5s, low 4.6s. So that's really moving for a big guy like that. He has the ability to make people miss at times in the open field. So overall, his athleticism, I rated him at an 8.7. For his size, he's definitely very athletic and can move around. And that shows from his ability to rush for almost 700 yards. He averaged about 3.8 yards a carry on 184 carries on the season. So, that's very impressive for a big pocket type quarterback, at least by the look of him. But he's got some mobility and uses that to his advantage when he needs to. Yeah. So the first game that Drake Maye should be circling on his calendar is on September 2nd. It's a night game against South Carolina, a neutral site. It's an opportunity for him to showcase what he can do against an SEC opponent and really get people talking about him in the Heisman conversation early on this season. And then the other two games that he really needs to circle are the last two games of the season, November 18th and November 25th, at Clemson and at NC State. Those are two games that they lost last year. Got beat pretty bad by Clemson, so he needs to come back against those two teams and really have a strong showing against each of them. And it will go a long way in helping him to solidify his resume going into the final voting for the Heisman, which would just be a few weeks after that.
So the South Carolina game should be pretty good. There's another quarterback in that game, Spencer Rattler. He's been around for a while. He was in QB1. It's been a bunch of different teams, right? So he actually showed out a little bit last year. Be interesting to see, who's the best quarterback in that game. And there are some sneaky things on that schedule. They barely escaped with a win with App State. They play them again next year. Looks like they play Minnesota and as you mentioned, that Clemson game, and Miami, I think, will be big too. So be interesting to see what he does without those weapons. But so Drake Maye, going to be interesting to see if he gets invited to New York to see if he's one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. All right. So our next quarterback is not the Heisman winner. It's not Caleb Williams, but it's a guy who showed out and beat Caleb Williams in the bowl game and in the Cotton Bowl. We have Michael Pratt from Tulane, who just so happens to be from the same hometown as our quarterback, Kevin Anderson. Kevin, tell us what you saw from Michael Pratt last year and what do you expect from him and the Green Wave this year?
Well, I've seen a lot from Michael Pratt, and I got to say, knowing him, seeing him kind of grow up, he was the quarterback who took over after I left Boca High, and he didn't graduate from there, but, he ended up moving to another school and chased the state championship, did a phenomenal job there as well. So I got to see him kind of a little bit under a microscope and can't speak any higher to the kind of just gamesmanship the kid has. So he is just a classic kind of absolute baller where, he's in a game, he's in the thick of it. He wants to make that big time throw and take a big time hit. So even back in 2021, which was his sophomore year, I believe, he went toe to toe at Oklahoma against Caleb Williams when he was at Oklahoma. And so that they ended up losing by 5 points, 40-35. It was a gutsy performance, fourth down run conversions with him running and lowering his shoulder on people. So just an incredibly gutsy competitor, which is really one of the things that I wanted to add when talking about this evaluation. I kind of put that a little bit with the decision making, like what kind of a guy are you? Are you somebody who thrives with that kind of last, 2 minutes on the clock, 2-minute drill? So I'll show you guys a little bit of film that I had on him here. All right, so for our first category, accuracy, I gave Michael Pratt a 9. All right, this is a play here where they're kind of getting UFC offsides with a dummy call, dummy cadence. They're playing the tempo. Guys are still getting set. So, you look at the clock here, 22 seconds. It just speaks to the kind of, true competitor he is. Every big game, he shows up the most. This is clearly a one high variation where you see number 9's not getting set. We got 2 backers pushing to the field, which seemed to be some sort of miscommunication, but I really love his eyes. I can tell right when he catches the first snap, his eyes are drilled on the post safety. He's seen the post safety either rotate away or not in a good location. And we talk about ball location on the seams on the 30-yard line, and it's caught down to the 10. So we look at that seam window as an 18 to 22-yard window. Now, to be able to throw those types of plays, you have to be incredibly good at understanding how to dictate a safety and throw into a zone. So now on a play here, as we're continuing to talk about his accuracy, this is one where I'd say this isn't a first read. So a lot of the other ones, it's easy to be accurate on your first read. But this is one, as you see him scan left, back to a full field progression with a drive concept coming back over the middle here, and throws an absolute laser. So he's on the 33-yard line, and this ball just drills the guy straight in the chest on the 25. So I was kind of segueing my way into arm strength, where, a lot of guys, as they start to change their throwing angles, where his hips were aligned there, and now they're aligned here, it becomes a balance factor. And so your head position is something you can lose a lot. Now, I think NFL coaches see a big 6'3" tall kid sit in the pocket and throw a rope like this with his head barely moving. That really displays not only accuracy through progression, but arm strength on, a 25-yard seed. All right, now we talk about why did I not give him a 10? All right, now this isn't one here, but I gave him a 9. This is balls in the middle of the field. We see the safeties getting out into a cover 2. So talking about that whole shot throw that, as we all know, that's a very hard throw to begin with. Now this safety's getting off the hash, the pre-snap alignment about 13, 14 yards. Whole shot is still an 18 to 22-yard throw. Now they're doing this off of an RPO with a designed stick. So now when you do it like that, you're having to show eyes, and he's pump faking. He's trying to get the corner to bite. Now, when you do that, that doesn't really keep the safety on the hash. So, I expect this to be more of a 18 to 17-yard hole shot for an 18 to 22. More on the lower side. Balls on the 54, balls caught on the 34, 35. So, about 19, 20 yards, that 18 to 22-yard window on a rope. He's pump faking. He knows he's got to beat the safety, and he throws a seed down the sideline. So, as far as arm strength on the intermediate balls, his one ball is very impressive. Now, his deep ball is also impressive. However, it's not necessarily a Josh Allen deep ball. That's why I didn't give him a 10. Now, we talk about deep balls and different variations of what we want to throw, is 41 to 44 yards versus off zone, 35 to 38 yards versus man. This one here is another example of a deep over that ball's on, 35, and he's throwing another 30-yard just line drive. So we get to that deep ball discussion of 41 to 44. Okay, so we look at a press man variation where say we want 35 to 38. This one, he throws it out in front exactly at 35 yards. The reason we say that is because, you don't exactly get to top speed when you have somebody playing press in front of you. All right, so now we've got an off, same game, same guy. We got an off, it's cover 4. So, still off man tendencies. Got a man turn here by the corner, but we got 8 yards of separation that he's got to make up. So now this is when we want it in that 41 to 44 yard range. So ball's on the 44. We'd like this ball to land on the goal line. So here now he kind of puts it on the guy's head at the 45. These are the ones where I'd say, hey, if we're having the ball land on the goal line, that guy might separate a little bit longer. And Pratt does a really good job being athletic and keeping his head still. Now, this is one where I feel like at the top of his drop, he's not holding his base enough. He's very much weight. There's not a lot of bend in his knees. He's up on his toes. Where if he wanted to throw it further, I guarantee he could. This is one that I'd say, hey, let's squat a little further and let this thing rip. All right, now, as we progress so arm strength was a 9, accuracy was a 9, decision-making was an 8. Now, decision-making was an 8, more so based on his completion percentage. I think when he finds the open guy and he's in a good position, he is very accurate. Well, I gave him a 9. Now, his stats, this year he finished 63%, but he started at 56 his first year, 58 the next year. So he's slowly been climbing, which is a great trend for NFL prospects. Now, on this play here, we just show his absolute athleticism. This kid is super crafty. dead to right to DN's just unblocked. We've got, an MA here by the left tackle on the slide, and he just makes a miss in a phone booth. So the guy's athleticism is not Lamar Jackson from a linear speed, but he's got enough to where he can work a pocket. And then this is, accuracy on the run. Like, this is the stuff that, is he on time? Is he working through concepts? No, this is being a gamer. And I think this is sometimes when he's at his best. On the run, I like to talk about getting our back shoulder and back hip through a throw. So you see he's, if you saw that QB1 documentary with Patrick Mahomes, all that thoracic spine mobility, that rotational stuff on the move, he's got that fluidity where, and he's just a true athlete. Now 4th and 6, minute 30 left. He's weaving through a pocket where we see we've got a stunt here by the D-line, slight stunt with potentially a spy. Or it might have been a spy that just really shouldn't have went with the back, but they did have a pre-aligned dropper for anything. 4th and 6, biggest game of his life. He's making plays on a continuous basis. Only a couple more here now. As far as athleticism and the running ability, I put him an 8.5 because you're not going to design runs for him. Now, this is a designed run power read. However, the design of this play really stems on a jet sweep and a lot of flow. So it's a misdirection play that is favorable for a quarterback, right? So you see, as you get the wash on a power, power can sometimes cut backside A gap, which happens here. You get a wash. So now he's really just showing his speed, which, I don't know what he'll run at the combine, but it's more than enough where you can work with him and he can add that element. As far as Michael Pratt as a whole, I think, he plays amazing in his biggest games. And his 2 losses last year against UCF, he had 3 touchdowns passing, 0 picks, 1 rushing touchdown. And loss against Southern Miss, he had 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and but a 65% completion percentage, which is one of his best on the year. Now with that, he had 81 rushing yards. So there's never a game where he doesn't show up. Last year, he had 8 games where he had at least 1 passing touchdown. So he's a guy with a 27-5 touchdown interception ratio. And when we're looking at a quarterback and efficiency, it is, over 65%, 3-to-1 ratio touchdown interception. Now he's sitting at a 5-to-1 ratio, which I think speaks to, his ability to not turn the ball over. His overall completion percentage and his yardage is a little bit on the lower side. And I think that is the reason why I gave him an 8 on the decision making, because, he's not getting those extra yards with a little bit lower completion percentage. So, being consistently accurate and making the right decision. Now, he does have incredible big play making ability. Upcoming this season, the game of the year for him, because, he could have left last year, 11-2 season, beating USC. You got to leave when you're hot. And, a little bit concerning that he didn't, even though it was a really heavy class. So now there's another heavy class he's coming out with, Caleb Williams. He needs to continue this, which is never easy. But Ole Miss, September 9th, at Tulane. So, and now I don't know if that's a neutral site or not, but, he lost this year to UCF at home, lost to Southern Miss this year at home, then beats UCF, their conference championship. Wins at Cincinnati, wins at Kansas State. So he almost plays better when he's not at home. So I don't know if it's, hey, we're getting away to the hotel, more business trip mentality, but, he's got to be circling this on his calendar of, if I'm going to be a first-round draft pick, it's because I'm going to do something crazy against Ole Miss at home. Really looking forward to that for him, just constantly rooting for him in general.
Yeah, like you said, the game of the year, it is at Tulane, which is kind of crazy. It's not at the Mercedes or whatever they call it now, whatever the Saints stadium's called now. It's actually at Tulane in their stadium, second week of the season against Ole Miss. So looking at their schedule, they do not play SMU. SMU wasn't that great last year, but they're always sneaky good. As you mentioned, throughout their schedule, they lost Southern Miss. They played them again. Memphis is always tough. So playing Memphis on October 13th should be interesting. And then down the road, I think it's the last game of the season, UTSA playing them. Frank Harris is coming back. He's pretty electric.
Yeah. So funny enough, I talked to both those quarterbacks, Frank Harris and Michael Pratt. And, Frank came off player of the year in his conference. UTSA's all-time player, and both those guys have gone to Manning Passing Academy together and have built a little bit of a friendship, the two of them. So I know that both of those guys are going to be circling that game, as a competitive, both elite players that both have a shot at the NFL level, last game of the season with a lot of implications on the line.
That should be something to see. What he did against Caleb Williams in that Cotton Bowl was unbelievable.
And if I may, USC is a totally different caliber of recruiting class year in and year out, across the board. So when you measure an elite quarterback, when I'm evaluating a quarterback, I don't even watch the conference games that I know are a wash, because I want to see what a guy is going to do against the best competition. And I think even NFL scouts, they start to float those games up to the top when they're evaluating.
2nd and goal. Fires. Touchdown!